everyone. It's Julianne Meyer, your host of Own Your Wellness. Happy Monday and happy Easter for those of you who celebrate Easter. I actually have a really fun story I want to share with you guys, and it's quick, I promise. So my boyfriend Drew came over and he asked me to walk the dog, and he said he was going to go to the bathroom. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go out to walk the dog and I come back in, and it turns out he went and hid Easter eggs for me for Easter with little presents in the eggs. It was just one of the sweetest things, and I felt like a little kid again. So I got to give him props for that, always keeping things fresh. But anyway, I am excited because I have my friend here today, Tom Glasser, who is an amazing author. And if you haven't had the chance to pick up his book yet, Full Heart Living, you can get it on his website as well as Amazon, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But he is an amazing soul, and I felt an instant chemistry with him. I don't know, gosh, it's been almost a year now because it was last summer when I met him. So anyway, let's bring him on. Hey, Tom, welcome.
Hi, Julianne. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while, so yay. So anyway, not all of my guests are familiar with who you are. So yeah. I would love it if you would share a little bit about that and also your own wellness journey.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things, I don't know if I shared with you, one of my new things, Julianne, is I graduated from yoga teacher training in November, right? So I am now a yoga teacher. Lately, I've just been just in the condo on the grass outside, teaching outdoors just for free, just for fun. I'm calling it Yoga Fun, and I'm just getting practice, discovering my yoga teacher voice. It's been really fun. So that's my newest endeavor. And so beyond that, I'm a psychologist and a life coach and a happiness seeker. A senior happiness superhero is one way I like to think of myself. Like you, I really believe in practicing joy, spreading joy. One of the ways I do that is through my work as a psychologist. So I do tend to work a lot, believe it or not, with trauma survivors. And what astounds me is the ability of the human spirit to be resilient. So despite some of the hardest things any of us can imagine, my clients never cease to inspire me with how they bounce back and become incredibly resilient, happy people. So that's one of the things I do. And yeah, like you mentioned, an author. So my first book came out about 6 years or so ago. And yeah, that's just skimming the surface, but that's a few things about me.
Well, I know there's one through line that goes all the way, and that is that you love to help people and bring out the best in them. And that energy comes across, and I love that.
Thank you.
So something though that just sparked a question while you were speaking was you talked about trauma and that you help people with trauma, but a lot of people aren't even familiar what trauma is, or they think that they don't have it or that they haven't experienced it. And it's always kind of shocking to me because, I happen to have known somebody who was prostituted from the age of 4, and she didn't think that she had any trauma. So
right.
If you could explain a little bit, I would love that.
Yes. Something that to most of us is so obvious. But isn't that's such a great example, because so many people with other examples would say the same thing. Well, I'm not a trauma survivor. So danger. So that's a hallmark of a traumatic situation. So I mean, we're hopefully at the beginning of the end of this pandemic right now, and I would say all of us. Yes. Pray to the gods above. Yes. Can we get through this? This is a collective trauma we're currently experiencing, right? So think about some of the elements. Surprise. We did not expect a worldwide pandemic at this time. Danger. Threats to our very lives. Threats to our livelihoods. So those are the two biggest hallmarks, I would say, that there's danger, there's fear, and surprise. So situations where those two occur, often that defines a traumatic experience.
So how do you, I mean, because something that you said is that, people who've experienced traumatic events or continue to, that they're very resilient. What do you think it is about that? I mean, where does that come from? Do you have any idea or?
So many places. I think, first of all, there's an inborn piece of us that is just naturally resilient, that it's just within us, that it's coded into our very genes. I absolutely believe that. So I mentioned collective trauma a minute ago. All of us are experiencing that now with what we're going through, and not just the pandemic, by the way. There was an insurrection to our capital very recently. This is not very long ago. And there's been multiple collective traumas in addition to that. We've had some massive shootings just recently in our country. But back to the question, so how is resilience? Resilience is built into our bodies. It is within us. Oh, that's what I was saying. That so there's these collective traumas. There's also collective resilience. So even if we're not aware of it, just by being in this experience that we are facing together, and I'm pretty amazed at how quickly the whole world was able to pivot just over a year ago when we did need to go into lockdown. Isn't it amazing what we all did when we came together? It never ceases to astound me. Even though it seems like, we're all busy with our lives, right? It's so easy to take these things for granted. What if we just pause for a minute and go, look what we did. Look how we changed our whole world. It's not even just a country or a city. The whole world got together and said, let's do something different for the common good because we need to. That's an example of resilience right there. So you asked, where does it come from? It's within our genes, and it's all around us. If we look around, and particularly if we surround ourselves with resilient people, there's like this contagion effect. It can be contagious. So it's both just being in their presence, and here's the piece I really love. And you'll probably remember this from talking about my book. My book is, I studied the happiest people I know. I interviewed them, and just being in their, thank you. Just being in their presence lifted my spirits. But you can notch that up. You can take it to another step by explicitly talking with happier or more resilient people. What do you do? How do you become more resilient? Why are you happier? What do you notice you do differently that other people don't? And then when you start to talk about that stuff, to me, there's just like this compounding effect. My spirits rise when I hear about how people have overcome challenges and difficulties. It's so inspiring. So that's what comes to mind immediately about where it comes from.
No, I love that because, you're talking about one of my favorite topics, and that's energy. And, it's like we tend to forget that even though we're, separate human beings, we're all connected. And so, think about like the times you walk into a room and you can tell somebody in there has been fighting. They're not even talking, and they might not even have an expression on their face, but you can feel it. So if that's, if you can feel that energy, then why can't you feel joy? You could feel that as well. So I think Absolutely. That you got to think about it like both ways, but I love that.
Yeah.
So I know that everyone has, but we're talking with you. So you've dealt with some challenges, especially lately. What are some things that you do to help raise your spirits again, or, get you out of that negative thinking pattern?
Yeah, so I can tell you, I think this is in part perhaps what you're referring to. So my mom just died right before Christmas. So that's about 3-ish months ago now. And this really hit me hard. So my second parent to have died. My dad preceded her in death by about 2.5 years. And so I'm just really coming out of that really deep, heavy grief. And I almost, even as I just say that out loud to you, Julian, like I can feel it still in my body. I can feel it in my eyes. That it's not totally gone. I'm very sad. It's hard to lose your mom. Even though we expected her to go about this time, even though I am 58 years old, it's a massive change. It's like my North Star. This is this metaphor that kept coming to me early on. Where's my North Star? My North Star is gone. I have to find a new North Star. That's huge. So what do? So I've really allowed myself to just have my feelings, Julianne. I massively cut back over these 3 months on just about anything that was optional. So I have totally been able to show up for clients, no problem. And in fact, I'm so glad I had clients over this time, because in a way it gave me a break, right? It was nice to focus on somebody else for 50 minutes at a time and kind of get immersed in somebody else's world and get reminded, oh, there's other people, there's other problems. This is, grief can be very self-focused. So number one, allowing myself to have all of my feelings. So allowing, not just saying it's okay to have those feelings, I literally created space, because I didn't have the energy nor the motivation to do many of the things I typically would be doing. What else? I kept up my physical fitness. I think that's huge. Now, not to my prior level, because I didn't have that energy, but I still went for long walks every single day. I still attended to nutrition. And let me just make a quick side comment here, because it's so relevant to kind of the trademark of this very show. Wellness is more than burpees and broccoli. Yeah. It's so true. And that is the foundation, right? That is the foundation of health. That's the foundation of the brain chemistry. So I know how important that is. And I didn't give into the temptation, which the truth is, last time I went through this 2.5 years ago when my dad died, I overate. I was craving, just absolutely craving trail mix. So nuts with chocolate and raisins. I was going to town with that stuff. I found that really soothing. I gained, 10 or 15 pounds. I was out of balance. That was not the best choice. I did not succumb to that temptation this time. I was determined. So I've not gained 10 pounds, at least yet. What else? Surrounding myself with people who I adore, letting people support me, allowing people to who I trust to call me and to talk, and to sometimes to actually talk through what was happening with my grief. Sometimes just to hang out and go for a walk, or to see a movie or something remotely. Or in my pod, right? I'm doing this responsibly and carefully. So is there anything else? So yeah, the foundation, making space, making it a priority, connecting with people. Oh, connecting with myself. I think that's the other big thing. Yeah. Just, again, really using my own mindfulness to notice, wow, I'm really sad in this moment. I'm really sad today. Being okay with that. Not trying to avoid it, not trying to shut it down, not stuffing it, but allowing it to flow. And then eventually it does pass. Like, that's another thing, trusting the feeling. And this is some of the deepest grief I've ever experienced in my whole life. A parent is very significant, no matter how complicated your relationship with a parent is. And mine was complicated in some ways. My mom was a wonderful person and really, really hard to be with sometimes. Really, really hard. And I loved her, loved her, loved her, loved her. So it's a massive change. No matter how complicated the person is, it's a massive change in my life. So those are some of the tools that I have used, and I feel like they have paid off. It's not that long, right? For a massive major loss like this, it's 3 or 3.5 months out, and I'm beginning to feel better. I have motivation again. There's stuff I want to do, and I have the energy to do it. And just hallelujah, thank God, I'm back to my writing. Not to my routine where I was writing every single day. I'm not there yet. But a few times a week, I can write again. I have that focus and concentration. And I'm so grateful for what I do have.
You know, I love that you talk about allowing, because not only allowing yourself feelings, but allowing people to comfort you, just allowing those feelings to come and allowing them to go. So I know a lot of people too, when at least I know, I'm going to talk about me. I know when I'm experiencing extreme grief, like you said, losing a parent's brutal. When those times when I did feel happy, I felt guilty for feeling happy because I'm like, my mom just died,
Right.
And it was, now that I'm older and I've experienced more loss, it's a little different. And I understand a little bit better intellectually how it works, but
yes,
just allowing everything that comes up and not trying to judge it, every step of the way.
Yes, it's okay to have joy, even in the midst of such huge grief.
Well, for me too. Yeah, exactly. And for me, that was something that I needed to make it through. Because if it's constantly heavy like that, then it makes it extremely hard to move forward. And all of a sudden that trail mix, that's the only way I would be able to cope. That's not healthy.
A little bit of trail mix might be okay, right? But not the way I was pounding that stuff back.
For me, it would probably be cheese or ice cream, but
Oh, yeah. We all have our foods. Yeah,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yes. So absolutely allowing and then letting the joy in, even in the midst. I love that. Celebrating it, right? That's another thing so now I know this brutal grief, like you called it. So joy is so sweet when I do have those moments now, Julianne. Oh my gosh, when I just like yesterday, I got a video of my great nephew playing in some water and making his little brother crack up. Right, that little, there's such a boost. Like I'm so happy. I mean, such a minor, tiny thing that my niece sent me this great video. And it brings great joy to me now. And you know what I want to point out about that, because this is so a part of all that we're talking about. That's about connection, right? These are people I adore. This is, and it's related to my mom, right? I wouldn't be here if not for my mom. My niece wouldn't be here if not for my mom. My great nephews wouldn't be here. This is all about that connection, the heart stuff. And to me, like when we talk about wellness, and forgive me if I'm getting ahead of your questions here, it is more than broccoli and burpees. Those are super important. And a mentor told me this so long ago. I was so young, early 20s. That it's the connections in life. That's the most protective factor. So even if we smoke cigarettes, which we know is just horrible for you, right? Even if we barely exercise, right? It's so bad for you. Movement is so important to us. It's so good for our bodies. But even if we don't do those, even if we hardly move our bodies and we smoke and we have really good connections, like it counters some of the negative effects of those other choices. It's so important. We're social beings. We must be connected. So to me, like that's the number one thing, social connections. Who do I love? Who loves me? who accepts me for all my gifts and all my unbelievable untarnished edges that still need so much work on a daily basis, but they still love me, right? I make mistakes and they're like, Tom, you did that thing again. And I'm like, shoot, you're right. I'm so sorry. And then they're, come on, let's go get ice cream.
I love that. Something that you're talking, just about connection. And I think that's part of the reason why COVID's been so difficult is because, the way we communicate and connect with people has had to change so much. Right. And it's fascinating to me how we've adapted or we haven't. And, just depending on who it is. And something that I'm you don't know I'm going to do this, but so something that you had sent me before were these conversation sparks. And I'm telling you right now, my boyfriend Drew and I, because he was like the one person that I could consistently see throughout this whole thing and, in my safe circle. And I noticed that we were watching a lot of TV. And so, we decided that probably wasn't connectedness. That was just spending time next to each other. So I whipped out these cards and we have had some amazing conversations because of your cards. So I just want to say thank you because you helped create like a closeness between him and I that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise. So I just love that conversation, connectedness, how important all of that is.
Yes. Nothing wrong with a good Netflix movie or series. Nothing like there's a time for that, right? That can be
exactly.
So, but yes, like so many of us, it's like me with that trail mix. I overdid it after my dad died. Really easy to get lost in Netflix and forget the most important thing. I'm so glad the conversation sparks were helpful. That of course that just makes my heart beam and practically burst.
Well, it's always good to know when you make a difference in someone else's life. So
yeah, and so they're based on themes in my book. So my book was about how are people resilient and happy? How do happier people really live? It's really a book on how to live, and so the books follow all the various themes that I heard my interviewees talk about and my clients, and they transcend the surface. They do go pretty deep. Yeah. And so some people tell me they can only do a few at a time and then they need a break. And it's okay to talk about lighter things too, right? There's nothing wrong with talking about your favorite color and your favorite movie. Those can be very connecting conversations as well. I wanted to create a product that brought people to that deeper level because I learned that's where happier people, they exist there more, they live there more, they're more connected with themselves and more with other people. And then it has all these great effects, like greater resilience, like greater health.
I think I told you this last time we spoke over the computer.
Yes.
And that was the other thing I did with your conversation sparks, which was fun for me, is whenever I was stumped about something to journal, I would pull a card and write about my answer to that. So
yes.
So then there's that creativity as well that makes me feel connected to my higher self. So there you go.
Totally.
Having a conversation with my higher self, that always helps too.
Totally. And that, yes. Many people have told me that they use them for that exact activity, and they're great for that as well. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we do need to go to commercial break, and I think now's a perfect time to make that break. So we'll be right back after these messages. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thanks.
Oh, love him. I've had the opportunity to get to know him over the last almost year, and he's got some amazing insights. And if you haven't picked up his book, you can grab it off his website, which I'll put up again, and also Amazon. Definitely Amazon. That's how I was able to find him. But before we go to commercial break, I want to say hello to everybody who's watching us live on TV, online, the internet, all that fun stuff. So thank you for joining us, and we'll be right back after these commercials.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer, and you are watching Own Your Wellness. And my special guest today is Tom Glasser. He is an author, a psychologist. Oh, he forgot to mention actor, a yoga instructor. Basically, he's an all-around helping good guy. And let's bring him back on. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Julianne. Thank you for that.
So during the commercial break, I was looking through your book, and something that popped up for me, and I would love for you to expand on, is you're talking about the breath and emotional hijacking. So how to interrupt emotional hijacking by using your breath. And since you are a yoga instructor and you understand. So I would just love for you to expand on that if you wouldn't mind.
I can tell you on the break, I did a few yoga stretches, by the way, and I did breathe deeply. So here's the thing about writing a book. You will find this soon enough. So it's been, I'm a few years out, and I barely remember what I wrote. So I will say, I think what I was referring to there, and maybe you can even refresh my memory a little bit, is just when you get flooded with emotion or you're looping in your brain. That one thing you can do is to interrupt that. There's a ton of things you can do, but one of the most available is to just come back to the breath over and over again. This is why I love the study of and the practice of meditation. That's exactly what I do every morning for at least a half hour, is come back to my breath over and over and over again. And it's not the only way to train your brain to do that, but it's a super powerful one, because if I've done that 30 minutes in the morning and then later in the day something happens and there goes my mind, which the mind does, right? Even with a lot of training, the mind is meant to be very active and creative, right? This is how it's designed. Coming back to my breath can help me bring my mind where I want it to be.
Beautiful. And, there's a difference when when you're running your brain or it's running you. And
yes, well said, Julianne. Yes.
And I'm sure that's what you're referring to. It's like, it's okay to have thoughts, but are you being led around by them? Same thing with your emotions. Are you being led around by them? I think that you and I have talked about this before, but one of my favorite examples is, we tend to become our emotions, and something as simple as saying I am. It's like you are becoming that emotion, but really ultimately you're not. So are you telling me that, let's say you're sad and you're depressed, and which could be all for valid reasons, and all of a sudden you win $15 million in the lottery, you're telling me you wouldn't celebrate because you're too sad and depressed? Mm-hmm. It's amazing how quickly our emotions can change. And that's a really dramatic example, of course, but it goes to show that, when we do have some control over how we're thinking and how we're feeling about certain things. So I love that you talk about the breath and how important that is. Mm-hmm. would you mind talking a little bit about meditation and, how you practice and how, if somebody's just starting out, how they might be able to, start their own practice of meditation, what to expect, that kind of thing.
Totally. Well, it also fits with the emotional hijacking thing, because another really helpful technique with that is just labeling, just noticing what I'm doing, really bringing awareness. So if I'm triggered by an event in my life and it's got me in that emotional state where I'm feeling activated and my mind is looping and I'm thinking the same thought over and over again and it's really not getting anywhere, I can say to myself, oh, I'm triggered. Oh, my mind is looping. And just that awareness, so like coming from an observer standpoint, instead of just staying with it in my mind, oh, I'm doing that thing. And you hear the tone in my voice. It's curious. It's open. It's neutral. I'm not blaming myself. I'm not clinging to it. I'm not telling myself what a horrible person I am for doing that thing. I'm going, oh, there I go again. And again, coupled with the breath, that can open me up to making more easily a better choice. Now, is it just so simple as soon as I do that, I'm going to stop being triggered and looping? Maybe not. No, often it takes me a couple minutes, or like I might have to really change my location or my activity. But meditation teaches that skill so well. That's what I love about meditation. So 30 minutes of my morning meditation is simply silent meditations. I'm just sitting or sometimes lying down, and I'm breathing and I'm trying to focus on my breath, and I'm just bringing my focus back over and over again to the breath. And what I do is I count my breaths. This is what has worked for me, and I've been meditating for about 30 years. That's what I generally, I know I've experimented with all different kinds, and all, there's benefit to almost every kind for me, but this is what I've been able to stay with. So I count my breaths. And my mind goes, because like I was saying earlier, this is what our minds are supposed to do. My mind goes elsewhere, even after 30 years. Mm-hmm. But now I know to not get mad at myself, to not expect it to be different, to not want it to be different, to not compare it to somebody else or to myself a moment ago. Just go, oh, there it went. Let's bring it back to the breath. So that's one form of meditation. In terms of, for someone new to meditation, and by the way, what that is just trying to bring the body and the mind and the heart and the spirit all into one, in alignment, all into one place at one time, versus my body is one place and my mind is somewhere else, and who knows where my heart might be. That's what meditation is, or yoga. Yoga, is yoking, bringing them all into one. Yoga is a great way, in fact, for someone new to yoga or any other physical practice, like Tai Chi, for instance. And a lot of people say this, I can't just sit still for even 3 or 5 or 10 minutes, let alone 30. And I didn't start at 30. I started with 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And it slowly over the years grew. But yoga is a great place to start because there's a lot of direction. Right? The instructor helps you focus on your breath, move your body this way, try that, try this. And before you know it, you're concentrating so hard that you are yoking, right?
Yeah.
And yoga always ends with shavasana. There's always a chunk of time at the end where you're just sitting there or laying there. That's really the purpose, is to get all that kind of chatter and all that nervous stuff out of the body so that it's easier to yoke. It's easier to just be in one place at one time. That said, there's other things people can do. Weightlifting, just walking can be a meditation. Some people talk about knitting. Now, I'm not a knitter, but I can imagine, right? It's a repetitive action. That can be a form of meditation. It gets them into the zone. Whatever works for you, right? There's no one right or wrong way. Or guided meditations, super helpful at the beginning. And this was my entree. I started by listening to a guided meditation over and over and over again. So it wasn't just silence. I had a very specific focus. I could listen to the words and bring myself to those visualizations. And then slowly I branched into, and with help, I had teachers, right? Or find a really good teacher. If you're drawn to meditation, find a really good teacher and study with them for a chunk of time. And being in a Dharma group. So being with a group. So for years, I met weekly with the same group, and we together meditated. And so that support of other beings doing the same activity really helped me. It helped me maintain my own individual practice, and it helped it go deeper. Again, we talked about that contagion effect earlier. To be in a room of other people meditating helps you go deeper. For sure. I know. Now, it's not a cure-all, be-all. If you just walk into a room and it's your first time and you don't know what you're doing, are you going to go into some deep state? Probably not. It takes some training. Meditation is hard. It's work. That's why they call it a practice. So, but all those things, starting where you're at, having a good teacher, being in a group, over time now, I don't even need a regular group. It's so ingrained in me that I now practice 45 minutes minimum every single day on my own. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. And I can tell you it's made a profound difference in my life.
I think that's beautiful. And while you were explaining that, Helene actually said something that I'd love for you to touch on. And it's that when she meditates, she just goes to sleep. Mm-hmm. And that's actually fairly common. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, maybe that's what you need, Helene. Maybe that's what your body really needs. And that was very true of me at the beginning, because I was less mindful when I began. I was overdoing it with my body. I wasn't giving my body what it needed. And I wasn't paying attention to the signals of my need for not only actual sleep, but downtime. So when you're awake, downtime. Meditation is a form of really good downtime. It's truly restorative on a deep, deep, deep cellular level to the whole system, to the whole nervous system. So maybe you just need to sleep, first of all. And try that for a while. Just let yourself sleep. If that's what your body is telling you need, do that for a while. Then over time, if it keeps happening, if you're not naturally staying awake longer for meditation, then have it become your intention. So John Kabat-Zinn, who's known for bringing mindfulness, yes, me too, I love him too, to secular mindfulness to the United States and beyond, talks about falling awake in meditation. So that means being intentional. Okay, I'm going to stay awake give yourself a number of minutes. If you know you fall asleep at about the 12-minute mark, try to make it to 15 before you fall asleep. And again, slowly training the mind with intention. And then just noticing too, again, bringing in that mindfulness. Does something happen in your body or in your mind at about the 10-minute mark if it's 12 that you fall apart? There might be a pattern there. There might be something that you're avoiding in your body or in your mind. Look at if that's what your system is telling you, you might want to pay attention to what comes up. There might be a message for you. This might be the only way your insides can communicate with you. And I really frequently, Julianne, find myself saying that kind of thing to clients. They come in with whatever their struggle is. Their body is doing something. Their mind is doing something. Let's just get really curious here. I'll often say, let's look at this as if it were a dream. You're having these fantasies, or you're having these experiences. If this were a dream, what would the symbolism be? What would this mean to you? And then looking at it at that deeper level, it's amazing what insight can come out.
No, I love that because I know for me, especially when it was with meditation, yeah, it was me avoiding because I used to love to fall asleep. I could be well rested, everything. And that was my first indication that my body and my inner child was trying to tell me something. So it was rather fascinating. What am I not looking at? What am I trying to avoid? And so that was
Without putting you on the spot too much, do you remember? Is there an example you can give? What is there?
Usually, well, there's been a few different times in it. Like I said, it always comes up when there is something. So, for example, if I need to make a change in the way that I'm living my life, then I will want to fall asleep because I am already aware of it, even on a cellular level. But I don't want to make that change. I'm not ready to make that commitment yet.
Gotcha.
And so being in meditation and it quiets the mind, that's when those things come up and I can't ignore it. And so
thank you for that. That's so good. So fear.
Yeah. Big time.
Fear underlies that. And then there's the tendency to numb. Yeah. And again, that trail mix that I ate, that was a way I numbed after my dad died. That was numbing. I was checking out.
Yeah. And for me, it used to be TV. I used to watch TV all the time. Mm-hmm. I could be bored and still just want to sit there because I thought it was some sort of a way to escape my own life. And once I finally got out of the habit of doing that, then it was amazing how much, better things got. But yeah, it's kind of hard to look at in the beginning because it's like, okay, I have to do something about this. But
and it is just a habit. So often these behaviors that we automatically get into, we're just used to it. It may not be serving us anymore. That wasn't serving you so much anymore.
No. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with watching a good movie or a Netflix show or something like that. But now I plan it. Now it's not just like my default, it's like if I want to eat something that's not necessarily healthy for me, I plan it. So, if I'm going to a birthday party, for example, I know I'm going to have a slice of birthday cake. That's okay because I know that. But if I go to the store because I'm unhappy and buy a birthday cake to eat it, that's a whole nother story.
And then eat the whole thing or half of it at one sitting. Maybe,
I would do
something
that.
else going on there. Yeah.
Exactly. Might be. I'm eating my feelings again, But yeah, so it's just fun to be able to, if you turn it into a game, like, and like you say, curiosity. I love how you say curiosity. Just be curious about it because then you're not making all those judgments about, well, I should be or I shouldn't be or so that's pretty amazing.
Deadly, all that stuff that comes up and that we have been trained in our culture and in our families unwittingly. Most people are well-intentioned and try to do their best. But sometimes they instill these messages in us that aren't so helpful. I'm so with you. Yes. And so often with clients, I help them just notice how many times they use the word should. And it's not helpful. You could. It's a choice. Is there another way you can say that so that it's not so shaming? It's because the shame is deadly. And then it keeps us so stuck. Right? And then it engages like that teenager inside of us that says, you can't tell me what to do. No, I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to stay mad.
No, the teenager in me is alive and well.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Like, you want me to? Nope. There's a gentleman that was on the show a while back, and he was talking about how, he's got a son and how he learns from his son. And that one of the things is his son never wants to make his bed. So they turned it into this game so that it didn't have to be a chore that he would have to do every single day.
Love it.
And so, it turned into like a superhero game. And it's kind of, I've learned to do that with myself too, because if I'm still going to have to make my bed, why am I coming at it as, in this negative thought way instead of turning it into something else, something positive, or changing my perception of the whole experience? So
how can I make this fun? How can I make this fun? Yes, I love that. Yes. And again, often with clients who are stuck, there's a big project, they don't want to do it. Can you find your passion? Can you How could it possibly be fun? And sometimes it isn't even in the activity itself, but it's okay, then reward yourself, do it for 20 minutes. Can you do 5 minutes of something fun? Little tricks like that. They're really simple, but they can make a world of difference.
And one of the other things that works for me too, that I think is fabulous, is thinking about how I'm going to feel when it's done. So, the same example of the bed, maybe I don't feel like making it, but I love how it feels to walk into my bedroom after my day and see that made bed. And I want that. I want that more than not making it. So
yes. Gretchen Rubin talks about that that very specific example, how happier and more successful people start the day by that act, making their bed. That it is, again, that it's a foundational piece. It seems to set many people up for happier, more productive days. So I love that you've done that.
And, it was one of those habits, because I didn't do it for years, but about almost 7 years ago, it became my daily habit, and I haven't looked back. And if there's some reason that I don't make my bed, and this is another way that I can tell something's off, because if I'm like, wait a second, I didn't make my bed. Something internal is going on here. I need to take a look a little bit deeper that I haven't, acknowledged. So, so something that you had said that I adore, and it was that you could feel grief in your eyes. And I love how in tune you are with how things show up, because I have felt that before, and I've never heard anybody put it like that. And I just love it because it's true. I felt it. It's like right there. Or I could feel it maybe in my gut and my heart and things, all the obvious places. But so I love that you're so in tune with that. Is there a way that you became more aware? I mean, is it just practice?
Yes, it's a lot of practice. It's first of all, knowing how important it is. So again, we're in a culture that trains us to be really up here. And it's not all bad, right? We've done so many great things in our country and in our culture. There's like, we have this for a reason. This is so helpful, so important. So I'm not saying it's all bad and we should just be in our body. And so many people, when they overuse this, and I was going to say used to be, I still am this way sometimes too. I can overdo this. And I lose touch with what's going on here. And the more I do that, the more I suffer. The more I'm in touch with what's going on here, the more I can honor my whole system, the kinder I am to myself, the happier I am in the world, and the less I cause others to suffer. So I just know how important it is. So I have consciously developed this. Again, the practice of meditation helps that, because that's part of it, is just noticing what's going on in your body, what's in here, and going to it. The practice of meditation doesn't say as soon as you notice it, go away from it. No. Meditation says go there. Okay, if your knee gets starts, if my leg starts falling asleep, go there. Don't just switch positions. Eventually you might. What's it like? What's happening in your leg right now? What does that feel like? What's amazing is that sometimes just that act causes it to shift somehow, or takes me somewhere else. Sometimes I just need to shift position because I've been sitting in the same position too long and the blood flow's cut off. That's fine too. But I've trained myself, and part of it is being a psychotherapist and a coach, because I see the patterns so clearly, often, sometimes more in other people than in myself. So just asking people, as you talk about this difficult thing, what's happening in your body? Where do you feel that in your body? Where do you experience that? Like, they'll say, I'm sad. That's a great start. So, and where is that showing up in your body right now? And it can be anywhere, right? For you, you said it might show up in your heart or your gut. That's maybe your most common. For some people, it's in their throat. For me, it is in my eyes. I feel it, the pressure in my eyes. For some people, it's in their sinuses, like they're going to cry or something. It can be a heaviness in the chest or on the shoulders. These are the most common, but it could be so many other things.
And it doesn't have to show up the same way for everyone. So I love that idea too, and just being aware and looking. And for me, something that was interesting was I actually got the vaccination, the COVID vaccination. And the first one that I got, the person who did the vaccination said that my arm would more than likely feel heavy. And that was such a good description. I could barely move it. It hurt. But the fact that she said it would probably feel heavy and not to worry about it, it really put it in a different light for me. And it was fascinating because when I went back for my second COVID shot, they asked me if I had, any reaction to the first one. I said, well, my arm felt heavy because that was the words that were used. And they looked at me, I'll never forget. And they were so impressed by my genius, obviously not, but, that, they're like, I've never heard it described that way. And it was rather poetic, but it was more the actual feeling than ow, because ow can mean a lot of things. So I thought that was a good way of going deep. Obviously that was a physical pain, but I
love that example so much that expanded your vocabulary. Just that one simple thing that the technician or whatever, the pharmacist, whoever it was, said. Like it was like this kind of a mind-blowing thing. I never thought of describing my arm that way. Yeah, my arm could be heavy. My arm might be stiff. Someone might never think of describing this part of their body that way, but that's how I would describe mine after my first vaccination for COVID. It was really stiff. It felt red. I don't know that it literally was red, but in my mind, I saw red.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the fun about talking about this kind of thing. Like any other vocabulary of any other field of knowledge, talking with people about it expands your vocabulary, and then you notice more, and it expands. Like simple pleasures. You see, I light up just talking about this simple thing. How fun is that? How cool is that? Who needs, alcohol and recreational chemicals when you got body parts and sensations to talk about?
I love it. We are almost out of time, and I want to make sure that we pop up your website so people can get a hold of you. And I would love if you wouldn't mind talking about lemonade.
Oh, yeah. So ever since the very beginning of the pandemic, Saturday mornings, 10:30 Central Time, a colleague and I have been leading lemonade meditation. So we're all stuck. People were anxious and isolated. And we thought, what's something we can do? We can offer a guided meditation once a week. So that's about 25 minutes and 10 or 15 minutes of community. So every Saturday, it's free. You'll find the details on fullheartliving.com. So just a way to experience a little bit of community and some calming guided meditation. That's been really fun. And we have such a nice group of people, Julianne, who show up every week. And it's drop in. People can come anytime, and you'll feel very welcome. Please join us.
I love that. Well, Tom, unfortunately, we're pretty much at the end, and I mean, it goes so quickly, especially when I'm having a fun conversation with you. So I just want to say thank you for joining us today. It has been such a pleasure and an honor to see you and hear your words of wisdom.
Thank you, Julie. And likewise, really great to be with you this hour. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
I didn't want to end. Usually I have a little extra time so I can be like, any last thoughts? But I was like, dang it, this conversation's so good. I don't want it to end at all. I'm like, oh no, it's time to end. So on that note, we will see you on Thursday. Happy Monday.